What up? It's your boy, King 89, and I am back again for another episode of the 89 Cast. Today, we're going to do a little review. We was able to see the Michael movie yesterday. I'm just going to talk about it a little bit, some of the things I noticed, some of the things I picked up. Whether it's as bad as people try to say it is, or if people are just over-exaggerating, being weird, being hypocritical, or hypercritical. I think it's more hypocritical than not. Or maybe it's even more of like what's the word, that like hate watching, right? So some of the critiques that I've been hearing about, I don't really go out looking for what other people are saying about shit, as far as like the critics and all stuff like that, because I want to watch things myself. I want to look at things myself and get my own analysis of it. Let's just go with things I noticed first, then we're going to talk about what the critics are pointing out, which is like a non-factor, like to point out non-factors of the movie, or things that they wish that they could have talked about. That is just like, why would you want that? Or it doesn't fit the timeline, or it wouldn't make any sense within the story. So one of the things I noticed, I don't think it's as bad as the Tupac movie. The Tupac movie, it was like he was a kid for 30 seconds, and then it jumps to him being Tupac. Like, that may not be 100% accurate, but he wasn't too far from, they jumped from him being a kid to him being almost being Tupac really fast. You understand what I'm saying? Like, he done met Jada Pinkett in the first 10 minutes. Like, I don't feel like Michael was that bad with it. They did focus a good amount of time, maybe 10, 15 minutes on kid Michael. So I don't think that was too much of a thing, but I do feel like there were some rapid jumps. So they went from, I want to say 1968, they practicing. I feel like Michael Jackson, American Dream, not Michael Jackson, the Jacksons, or Jackson 5 American Dream, whatever it's called, the American Dream movie from 1993. That movie focused a lot more on the Jacksons coming up into stardom. This one kind of like shrunk everything down. It didn't go into how Joe discovered that the Jacksons had talent, how he put the group together. Of course, if you watch the American Dream, you got all that story. It kind of like sped it up to the group's already a thing. They about to do their first gig. They do their first gig. Next thing you know, they perform it on TV with Motown. Like, it jumps into their childhood and all stuff like that. And then it jumps from there to him being 12, 13 years old. So, you know, it jumps to the off the wall era before he gets into that point where he wants to go solo, like right before there. Then it jumps to Thriller. Then it jumps to Bad. It kind of like jumps rapidly and skips over major parts that kind of lead up to certain things. I didn't find it a big issue. It's just something I noticed. And of course, I feel like a lot of that has to do with certain things that they couldn't talk about. Like, Diana Ross is a huge part of his childhood. Apparently a lot of the scenes that involved old girl, I think that was a girl from Drumline, right? She was in some movie. Kat Graham, I think her name is, who played Diana Ross. Eventually, like, Diana Ross opted out of being a part of it. She didn't want no parts of it because apparently some of the things that may involve Diana Ross may allege to certain things with her relationship with Michael and how it might have been grooming and all these things like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's understandable, but it's something I also noticed. It doesn't talk on The Wiz, which also involved Diana Ross. It doesn't really talk on how Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson's relationship really was. It kind of jumped into, I don't think Quincy Jones had that much input on Off the Wall. I could be wrong. Maybe he did have a little bit, but I thought Thriller was really like him and Quincy Jones was like this at that point, but I could be wrong. Another thing I noticed, like certain things, like certain details, like why Michael Jackson got his first nose surgery. In the movie, they painted Michael Jackson's nose surgery as him just looking at Peter Pan, him being obsessed with Peter Pan and looking at his nose, and was like his insecurities. I was like they didn't focus on the big nose thing. The big nose insult happens one time when he's a kid. He runs into the bathroom after that, starts crying or whatever like that. But for as much as his insecurities over his nose from his dad was a part of Michael Jackson, like I would say was a part, as much as that affected Michael Jackson, the movie didn't hammer home enough how much that affected Michael Jackson. I feel like it only was a thing one time, and then after that, 13 years later, he gets nose surgery, and we're supposed to just assume, oh, he called him Big Nose when he was a kid, so that's why. But then they try to tell us that it was because of Peter Pan. He wanted to be more like Peter Pan, which I think is wrong. I don't think that was the reason. From what I know, Michael Jackson was doing a dance rehearsal where he slipped and broke his nose. And that's why he got his first nose surgery. But the nose surgery was a little botched to where it affected his sinuses, which in the movie he says, I had to get this because of my sinuses. So it kind of like blends fiction and reality a little bit, which is the Hollywood shit. You understand what I'm saying? But that was something I noticed, was how they kind of like didn't make it seem like Michael Jackson got this surgery because of an accident. They made it seem like he got it basically off mainly because of his own insecurities, which I think is not 100% the truth of the story. We get to the 80s. I remember the Michael Jackson winning all the Grammys scene being a big part of the promo, a big part of the trailer, but I do not remember that being in the movie. Maybe Diana Ross had something to do with that too. I just feel like a lot of the parts of the movie that were supposed to be there got taken out, and that kind of like made everything feel very, very rapid. But I don't think that majorly took away from the quality of the movie. I think it was still a good movie. The performances, like there are times where it looks like you're actually watching Michael Jackson perform. Like the dude, Jafar Jackson, as far as his movements and how he talked, how he walked, how he danced specifically, you could tell he really hyper focused on trying to get everything to the T about Michael Jackson. Like there are points where it feels like you're actually seeing Michael Jackson dancing and performing. Like, because I seen the American Dream, and his performance of Billie Jean, I feel, was better than the performance of Billie Jean that was on American Dream. Even though both are great, especially the bad. Seeing the bad performance, to me watching it, I was like, damn, he got it. He really got it. Everything else, you could tell he got it. But something about that bad performance at the end of the movie, I'm just like, that's it. I don't know what it is. I didn't think it was a bad movie. I didn't think it was a terrible movie. The critics tried to give it 36% on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever the fuck. That shit don't really matter. As a person that Michael Jackson, one of the greatest of all time, I fuck with Michael Jackson. Fuck with his music. Just everything he is. It gets overshadowed how important Michael Jackson is to pop culture, to music. Like it just gets overstated because people like to hyper focus on nonsense, bullshit. They like to prop up certain artists as being much bigger than they actually were. When Michael Jackson existed in a time where people had to go out and buy albums, had to go out to concerts, and he was the best at selling albums. Talk about Thriller sold so many albums that they still can't count how many albums they sold. And because of how much it's streamed, it's continuously selling albums. You're talking about an album that has been selling albums since the 80s. That's 45 years, 1981, 1982. Damn near 45 years, this album has been selling albums. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's just different. Thriller was, a top 10 record last year around Halloween? Just different. And people try so hard to compare themselves to this man. And it's just like, you can't. You can't. On to some of the critiques. They were talking about, one of the critiques I heard about was people saying that it was over glorifying Michael Jackson. What do you mean? What do you mean? That's the most hater shit. If anything could be like the most hater thing that you can say, it can be that this movie that is about the legacy of this artist, one of the greatest artists, if not the greatest artist of all time, is over glorifying the greatest artist of all time. The fuck are you talking about? I don't feel like it over glorified them. I feel like they like almost everything that they showed was like directly, like some of the things they showed were there's film footage of these things actually happening in real life. Were they over glorifying Michael Jackson back in the 80s, in the 70s? I don't know. When he was selling when he was selling millions and millions of records, was that glorifying him? I don't know. When he was performing and people were passing out and people were stadiums packed all over the world, people singing his songs, people standing outside of his house when he couldn't go to the movies without covering up his face. Were they over glorified? Like, what does that mean? Like, too many times people can just say stupid shit and not have to explain it whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you mean the movie over glorified Michael Jackson? These are based on things that happened in the real life. Were some of the details a little off? Maybe. But over glorifying him? When you can find actual footage of some of the things that the movie was dramatizing actually happened? How can you over glorify something that's real life? Of course, they're focusing on, they didn't talk about the allegations. The allegations happened in the 90s. This goes from the late 60s to the late 80s. So you can't not mention, you want them to mention something that didn't happen until after the point of time that the video was based on? You want them to straight up blatantly lie about something just because you want them to shit on Michael Jackson for whatever fucking reason? Another thing also I want to notice, they don't talk about his business acumen. That is something I noticed. Like I said, it's not that big of a deal. But they did talk about his purchase at ATV, which I believe happened after Thriller in like 84, 85. They didn't talk about that. I feel like that was another major thing that they could have touched on. But because they don't hyper-focus on the smear campaigns of Michael Jackson that started from the late 80s going forward, because they don't talk about that much, they kind of talk about more of his personal battles. Like, that's the thing people don't understand either, is even though it incorporates some of his major accomplishments, it also focuses a lot on his personal battles. His battles with his dad is a major part of the movie, and how his dad had an impact on stopping his independence as an artist, stopping his creativity, and how he was able to overcome that over and over again. They don't focus as much on when the media started to get on nitpicking Michael Jackson, which happened in the late 80s going forward. Even like how they try to nitpick on his vitiligo and how they be like, he wants to be white, and how his skin complexion started to change and how his nose started to change. Like it doesn't hyper focus on those things. And I feel like if they were to do a part 2, and if they were able to talk about the smear campaigns that follow Michael Jackson until his death, you would have to start from the mid 80s going forward. You understand what I'm saying? They didn't hyper focus on that. And if you want to talk about the smear campaigns, you have to talk about how him buying 50% of Sony ATV was a major contributing factor as to why they started to smear him. if they are going to go on to these accusations and start going into his drug problems, start going into his paranoia, they will have to start from his purchase of Sony ATV, because that's really where it started to pick up. You understand what I'm saying? But yeah, they did talk about the allegations. They over glorified him. They did talk about the negative aspects of Michael. Like, they literally wanted the Michael Jackson movie, where if you watch the trailer, it's going to talk about his creation of music, his performances, his legacy as an artist, as a musician, his impact on pop culture. For you to want to go into the movie expecting them to straight shit on this man for no reason, to make you happy. Kind of weird to me. If you want to do a smear campaign on Michael Jackson, if you want to make a thing to where you ignore all the actual facts of these allegations and accusations, if you want to go out there and make a one-sided smear campaign on Michael Jackson, knock yourself out. Michael Jackson movie, what do I give it? I seen Suplex, shout out Suplex. He gave it a 4 out of 5. I'll say maybe a 4 out of 5 might be good. I want to say 3.5, but it's like nothing major to where I'm just like, oh no. It was just like, it had its funny moments. It kind of brought you into the mind of Michael Jackson. It made you kind of understand why he was the way he was, or at least it expressed who he was as a person, how childlike he actually was. His room is full of toys and games, and he's got a pet monkey, which we already knew these things. And it's just like, some people will look at it and be like, oh, he a grown-ass man and he weird, right? But I feel it's him being himself. And I feel like too much we stigmatize people for not being themselves, having to hide themselves, having to hide who they are. You know what I'm saying? Because who Michael Jackson was not harming anybody, unless you believe the accusations. Michael Jackson wanting to enjoy his life, wanted to enjoy his riches, wanted to live out his childhood. Why is that weird? Because guess what? We got YouTubers that collect Nintendo memorabilia. You know what I'm saying? They collect Nintendo games. They collect Nintendo merchandise and toys. You got people that do unboxings. As grown-ass adults, they do unboxings of toys, of video games, they go to Comic-Con. They go to anime conventions. We have grown adults that exist today that participate and are the biggest contributors to the money that is made to anime. Even me as a wrestling fan, grown ass people that buy wrestling toys, wrestling action figures, wrestling championship belts, wrestling merchandise. And they get stigmatized as being weird. Why is it weird to have a thing that you're really into, that you contribute and you spend your hard-earned money on? You want adults to strictly pay bills and be fucking miserable. And that's weird to me. That's weird to me. You know what I'm saying? I don't think is it different? Yes. But guess what? If I had hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, if I owned the catalog of 350,000 people, and every time a song gets played on radio, I get paid, guess what? The bills is paid. The bills ain't shit. Guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put a fucking roller coaster in my house. I'm gonna buy your fucking monkey too. Me? I do that shit too. I buy video games. I buy wrestling merchandise. I would want to enjoy my life as much as I fucking can. So what if you think it's fucking weird? What do you want? You want adults to just buy cars and buy jewelry? Like if I'm a rapper, if I'm a rich rapper, and all I spend my time doing is buying jewelry and buying cars, guess what? I'm gonna buy a fucking gumball machine. I might put a vending machine in my house. I'm gonna have fun with what God has blessed me with. I'm sorry if to you that's weird. I'm sorry, but you're weird to me. I would love to live that type of life. Michael Jackson seemed like he really enjoyed himself when he didn't have to deal with the fact that I'm the biggest fucking artist on the planet. When he didn't have to deal with the media and dealing with going on tour and all those things like that. Michael Jackson seemed like he really enjoyed being at home. Being at home. Having toys, having animals, having his friends to play around with, having slides, having roller coasters, having Ferris wheels. That sounds like the most amazing place to be. We like to live in nostalgia, especially nowadays. Nostalgia is a big thing. Living in nostalgia, having nostalgic toys, this is a big thing for us nowadays on the internet age, where you can just post it and this and that. He was able to have all the nostalgia he could in the world. He could sit down and watch his favorite movies, watch his favorite TV show, watch his favorite cartoons, and pick up on those things. And those things contributed to his art. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just weird that because Michael Jackson had this childlike energy, because Michael Jackson spent a lot of his money on toys and Ferris wheels and animals and things like that, and was able to live out his childhood and enjoy his fucking life, we want to be like, because he was able to enjoy his life, we're going to also believe that he really was touching on children. Can some of those things coincide? Can they be people that are very childish and they use that childishness to lure children in, like the people at Roblox, like the whole organization of Roblox allows? Yes, that is a possibility. Does that mean that every single childlike person, every single childlike man, every single person that has their own obsession with something, maybe on the spectrum of autism, does that mean that every single one of them are No. Because we're looking at fucking Donald Trump being the president of the United States. We're looking at Epstein. We're looking at all these other people that you would deem as normal adults that do the exact same shit. We're talking about people that you would deem as normal adults that participate in the capitalism, participate in white supremacy, participate in the patriarchy, that are and y'all say nothing about. But when someone's a little eccentric, when someone likes to enjoy their fucking life, all of a sudden we got investigating them. That's a little weird. They got that shit they got going on over there. He got Ferris wheel. Like, I think it is very important for children to have adult people in there that can allow them to be children, that can allow them to enjoy being a child. We need more of that in the world. We don't need less of that. Because now, when these kids are 15, 16, 17 years old, and they're committing crimes, and they're shooting up schools, and they're doing this, and they're doing that, it's because they're fucked up because they couldn't have a childhood. That's why we get these children that are carrying trauma into their adulthood, carrying resentment into their adulthood, stuck on nostalgia into their adulthood because they could not enjoy their own childhood, and now they have to enter this world having to pay bills, having to pay insurance, having to know how to drive, having to have a job, having to deal with white supremacy, having to deal with patriarchy, having to deal with capitalism. Now you have people that never got to enjoy their childhood having to deal with adulthood, and some of them having to deal with adulthood earlier than they should. Some of them having to deal with adulthood at 12, 13, 14 years old. Some of them being victimized by adults at 10, 11, 12 years old. We need more people that are willing to pull children from those circumstances and allow them to be children. We need more of that. But anyway, that's enough for me. Went on a little rant. You know what I'm saying? I'll say 3.75 for the Michael Jackson movie out of 5. You know what I'm saying? Good movie. I think the performances were phenomenal. I think the acting was really good. The dude that played Michael Jackson's dad, phenomenal. Jafar Jackson, phenomenal. Nia Long is the GOAT. You understand what I'm saying? Did she do... I know this is going to be a conversation, and I don't want to do a comparison as a thief of joy. Was she a better Catherine Jackson than was it not Vivica Fox? What's the lady name? Angela Bassett. Did she do Catherine better than Angela Bassett? I don't think so. Like I said, comparison is a thief of joy. Nia Long is the GOAT. Nia Long did a good job, but Angela Bassett's performance of Michael Jackson's mom was just some of the greatest. Angela Bassett deserves the world. Nia Long deserves the world too. But if you don't know about how fine Angela Bassett is, check out American Dream. Check out the Malcolm X movie. Check out anything with Angela Bassett in it, and she's just amazing. But shout out Nia Long. She's an all-star. Shout out Prim, Hood Cinema. Shout out Jafar Jackson. Shout out the man that played Michael Jackson's dad. Another critique that I saw, which I kind of agree with, they did kind of like treat the Jackson 5 like they were just background characters. That was kind of crazy. That is something else I did notice. You get a lot more story of the Jacksons and their dynamic with Michael and all these things like that from the American Dream movie, which I feel like that maybe was the point. I feel like they wrote the Michael movie to be based around if you already saw the Jacksons movie. That's what I feel like. I feel like they was like, okay, we focused a lot on the entire Jackson family. So if you didn't see that movie, then you're going to miss a lot in the Michael movie. I feel like you kind of had to see the American Dream movie to kind of like understand the whole Jackson family, even though the Michael movie was centered around the Jackson family, but it was more focused on Michael, right? It was more focused on Michael, but you kind of had to have the previous knowledge from the Jackson movie to go into this. Otherwise, you would kind of think that the Jacksons wasn't shit, which is not true. You know what I'm saying? So that is another thing I noticed where it was like they were kind of background characters, and it was kind of like you had to know with the Jacksons American Dream movie to kind of like understand the actualities of what was going on with the Jacksons and Michael Jackson. Like it was like, this is focused on Michael Jackson, so we're going to kind of like lean back on that because we're going to hope that it's going to be the Michael Jackson fans that come to see this, so we don't need to focus as much on the Jackson because they probably already know. That's what I kind of felt like. But shout out to all the people. You understand what I'm saying? 3.75 out of 5. A lot of haters. Don't listen to the critics. Go see it for yourself. If you want them to focus on shitting on Michael Jackson for whatever reason, hats off to you. I think it's a little weird. And just an editor's note. I wonder too, thinking about it, I've seen Bohemian Rhapsody. I've seen the Tupac biopic. I've seen the Biggie biopic. I've seen Straight Outta Compton. I've seen this one. I've seen a good handful of music. I didn't see Elvis. A good amount of music biopics. And of all of them, I'm wondering how many have been created to answer unanswered questions about the artist that they focused on. I don't think none of the information that a music biopic, if anything, they've withdrawn, like anything that's like surface level, the average music biopic covers, right? They may exaggerate, do some Hollywood shit, but for the most part, the whole genre of music biopics is based on like just dramatizing things that you can find on Wikipedia. You understand what I'm saying? So it's kind of interesting that people were going into this looking for deep insights, or that they continuously do that, I should say. How many music biopics were super deep insights on artists' personal lives, especially artists that were dead decades before production? How many biopics weren't just celebrations of the music and moments of the artists' careers. Despite like the omissions, asking a music biopic to be something that it has rarely been for any other artist. Oh, the James Brown biopic too, which I think that might have been the best one. I don't think what would be the best music biopic that I've seen. But most of them don't do those deep insight. Maybe Ray Charles. Maybe Ray. Ray might be the only one I can think of. I might have to go back and watch Ray. I haven't watched it in a long time. Might have to go back and watch Ray. Maybe Ray might have been the only one that I can think of where they really dive deep into maybe his drug issues. They didn't go too deep into it, but his drug issues, his mental health issues, his trauma, and some of the fights he had to have about how he created his music. Maybe that might be the most in-depth. And if I'm wrong, somebody else let me know. But that might be the most in-depth music biopic, and that was probably like one of the first ones where they really touched on certain things that you just listening to Ray Charles, because Ray Charles, he did interviews or whatever like that, but it wasn't like now where you can get all that information from Wikipedia. So like that was like really revealing at that time. But other than that, I feel like we asking certain genres of film to do things they've never done. We're setting expectations on certain sectors of film to be things they've never proven to be. Now, I agree, those things should be better. That doesn't mean that they should rest on their laurels and just be like, okay, we're gonna give them all the hits, we're gonna give them all the big moments, and we just gonna make some money, right? I don't think that should be how it is, but I'm not gonna also go into every music biopic making it something that it does. First of all, it didn't advertise itself to be, and second of all, what that genre of film has never been. So that's just interesting to me. I had my expectations set based on what I saw in the trailer and what I know music biopics to generally be. My main focus was, does Jafar encapsulate Mike's energy and mannerisms? Anything about his drugs issues or his relationships or his sexuality, that didn't matter to me. It was more about, did you encapsulate Mike? Was you able to convince me that I could have potentially been seeing Michael Jackson on the screen, or like the way he was dancing and stuff like that? Did everything seem spot on? Was the technicalities there? Like, I was more focused on the effort of Jafar and how he portrayed the character more than I was, and if it was a coherent story. If it was a coherent story, and did you do your best part in portraying Michael Jackson in whatever limited setting that you was living? And I feel like he did a good job acting as, dancing, performing as Michael Jackson. And I feel like the movie was coherent enough. It was understandable for the regular person enough to be like, okay, I'm not that mad at it. I didn't expect it to be this deep psychological dive into the backstories of Michael Jackson, and this deep breakdown into his relationship history. I didn't expect these things. So, and that's because I kind of had my expectations set on how music biopics go. Like I said, I've seen the James Brown, I've seen Straight Outta Compton, I've seen Tupac, I've seen Biggie, I've seen there's another one I mentioned earlier. I've seen this one. I've seen Bohemian Rhapsody. I've seen these, and I kind of understand what the universe these things exist in, how they're usually structured, what they usually focus on. They're not there to unveil the dirt. You know what I'm saying? They're not there to answer unanswered questions. No, we're delivering fan service, and sometimes that's not a bad thing. Shout out to Michael Jackson himself. You know what I'm saying? The GOAT, king of pop, king of R&B, king of soul, king of all this shit. You understand what I'm saying? But that's it for me. I'm out. I'm gonna try and be back. I want to just do this real quick. Had a subject matter to talk about. I was like, fuck it, let's just throw this together. I might edit this a little bit, or I might just let this go. I might just upload it like this. I don't know. But anyways, that's it for me. I'm out. Too sweet. Deuce.